Well, hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Jane and I run a business called Snapdragon Life. Today I am going to be talking all about making things and particularly about my terrible habit of never quite finishing things. So grab yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and snuggle down the sofa. It is lovely to have you here. Now, I have a great friend who is a knitwear designer. Excuse me. And she says that if you see a knitting pattern where the photos only ever show one sleeve, you know, like this, 9 times out of 10, that is because the second sleeve was not finished for the photo shoot. And that once the photo shoot is over, that piece, that jumper, cardigan, whatever, is never going to be finished. And recently, probably over about the last year, I have found that creeping in. I run a thing called the Studio Club, and every month we do a creative project. And I work through the creative project and I do samples for the creative project and I make something. But very, very bad at leaving some of the things that I make not quite finished. And it was very interesting to me. Another thing that we do as part of the Studio Club is that each new moon we set intentions for the month going ahead. And this is May. It is flower moon. It's a moon in Taurus. It's my birthday month. So I thought I would make kind of like a bit more of a ritual ceremony of it. So I picked some flowers and I went outside and I had a candle and I did meditation, and then I said out into the world, what should I bring into my life this month? And the world very, very clearly said, and I didn't like this at all, so I think it's quite funny, some completion, Jane. You need some completion. Clear the decks, do things. So what I do with intentions, what we do in the Studio Club is we come up with some activities and put 3 activities and 1 habit change into the month, and then we review it at the full moon, and then the next new moon you might just carry it on, or you might go, well, that was enough of that experiment and completion, I'll do something completely different. So for my activities, I have been making a big attempt to finish things, and this film is a little bit about finishing things or going back to things or keeping going with things. So the first thing is Studio Club activity this year. I'm sorry, I'm fussing a dog here so she doesn't jump up. That's why my arm is going around here. In the Studio Club, what we have been doing is experimenting with dyeing wool with kind of foraged leaves. I mean, they might be foraged from your garden because we're doing a lot of things which are garden plants. So mint and bay and fennel and rosemary, sweet cicely, things that are very abundant at this time of year in the Northern Hemisphere. And also things that are a bit weedy, things that people think of as a problem. So ground elder, nettles, willow herb, rosemary willow herb, and the annual cranesbills. I like Herb Robert and shiny cranesbills, which are my main kind of like weed of our gravel drive. So been taking these and then working with them kind of like really slowly and gently to coax colours out of them. And been getting some really wonderful colours. This is Sweet Cicely, and this one is the tangled up now. As soon as I stop fussing the dog, up she comes. This is Shining Crane's Bill, which is very like Herb Robert, but just with different shaped leaves. Same sort of nasty smell. This one is Comfrey. This one is Hop, and this is Rosemary. And the colours, as you can see, if I hold them up, the colours, although they're all sort of like in the yellow tones, they are significantly different. So I wanted to make the project, sort of like at the end of this, to be something that would show off that. Because these colours, these are the colours that I wear. You know, if you're a fan, as I am, of the British brand Toast, which is a clothing and homewares company, these are the colours that so many of their clothes are in. So they're beautiful colours, but I wanted to be able to show that they're not all the same colour and they're not muddy. I didn't want to do another scarf, and I didn't want to do another blanket, because you can see this is the blanket that I've talked about before, and that actually these ones are going to go into. Excuse me, starting up here. I wanted to do something completely different. So what I decided to make was a bag, and I thought, well, I've got quite a lot of tote bags, but I do not have what I think of as a market bag. So a bag that's quite wide at the top, but then gathers at the bottom so that it's a circle. And I thought, what I could do is I could just make a market bag. And I started off and I thought, well, I could do it stripy, and that would be very nice. But you know, I've got a lot of stripes in the blankets and the scarves. So instead, I decided that I would make it with a slightly unusual kind of construction and do it in patches. So here is the bag, and what it is made up of is 4 trapezoids, which are like a rectangle if you squashed in the top. So 2 of the pieces are like this, they're short at the top and then they come down and have a wide bottom. And then 2 are like this, they're wide at the top and they come down and they've got a short bottom. And then when I've patched them together, you can see these diagonal seams, they've then made up that straight loop. And then at the bottom, I kept all of the stitches on stitch holders and put them onto a circular needle, and then knitted sort of like the bottom round and round and round, and then decreased it very dramatically to give me this lovely gathered bottom. So then I thought, well, the problem with knitted bags is that they have this tendency to go a bit saggy, so it's much better to line them. And by pure fluke, when I was looking for fabric to line the bag, I discovered that I actually had a bag, like a tote bag, that I had dyed with tansy as one of the very first things I ever dyed with natural dyes. Must have been about 5 years ago. And I've been using it ever since. It's been washed so many times. And it's, you know, is going nice and soft. And I thought that would make a really perfect lining. And it matched the circumference of the bag that I had made absolutely perfectly. It's a bit too long, so I chopped the bottom off it, turned over the edges, and then just gathered them in radically. So that's sort of like a nice gathered bottom for the bag. And then, as you can see, the bag had these canvas narrow straps, perfect length really, but they looked a little bit mean and not squashy. So I knitted these in moss stitch, 12 stitches, and I just knitted it to the length of the canvas things with a little bit of a tab over. And there we are, a market bag, and it is complete. So there we go, I have actually done a whole project. I didn't sort of like leave the strap off the back or not hem the edges because you can't see it in the photograph. This is complete. So there we go, that's my first complete thing. And as I say, these are all going into my blanket, which is not something that needs to be completed. This blanket is on its 3rd year this year, and I still have 2 long stripes to go. Now, there's been a few people have asked me about the pattern for this, and I would say that both the bag and the blanket, they're not really things that there are patterns from, because I have just made them up as I go along. But I can tell you how easy the blanket is. Right, so I have a needle here. I always knit on circular needles, even when I'm going backwards and forwards, because I find that it hurts my hand joints a lot less. So it is a size 8 UK needle, which I suspect is about 3.5 millimeters, 80 stitches, 8 rows, each colour, then change, carry the wool up the side. And I find that each mini skein, which is 20 grams, does me 4 stripes. So, and then I'm left with a little bit, which I save in a jar, and then I'm mixing them with mohair to make cushions, or there is a vest top, a scrappy vest top, which I will link here, and because I did do a video about that. So that is all the wool. Pop that over there. And the bag, again, I don't have a pattern, but I have written down exactly what I did to make this in a blog, and I will link that. So if you are a seasoned knitter, I'm absolutely 100% convinced that you will be able to follow my instructions and make a bag like this if you wish to. It would be the perfect scrap yarn project, because the construction with the diagonals really disguises the fact that you have maybe less of one wool, more of another, that they don't quite match, and so on. So there we go. So that is all of the knitting, with one complete project and one ongoing project. And the next thing that I wanted to talk about was, in the summer, I actually do much less knitting than in the winter. I think it's that kind of cozy thing. And in the summer, I'm much more likely to do embroidery. So this is from April's Studio Club project, was making a patchwork travel kit for sewing. And I had made this one up, and it had a pocket and I had all of that, but I hadn't quite finished it. So now I have finished it. This is my travel embroidery kit. And the thing that I did to make it into the embroidery kit was to sew on little loops. Now these are keyring loops, like this. And I've just sewn on 8 of them. And then when I'm putting together an embroidery project, I can sort out all of my threads, cut them into the right lengths, and put each colour onto one of these rings. It makes it very easy if I'm on a train table or something like that to keep all of the colours from getting tangled. And it also means that when I'm just using a few strands of thread, I can keep the rest of it all nice without it getting into kind of like a matted bundle of hair. And then when I'm not using these threads, they pop into the pocket and it rolls up. Obviously I can keep my needles in this bit just rolled out. So there we are, and then it just wraps up with this velvet ribbon. So there we are, one thing absolutely completed and in use. So now the ongoing project. I really love embroidered clothes, and they're having a bit of a moment at the moment. And I really love the work of a woman called Madeline Illustration on Instagram, and I'll link her, and also Tessa Perno. And what they create is very simple outlined embroideries, usually outlined embroideries on clothes that have a slightly random feel and a very personal feel, a little bit in the way that people have tattoos, and that things sort of mean things, but the design isn't very constrained. And I wanted to do something like this. So when I went down to London last week, I took my travel sewing kit and I took a bit of linen that had dyed with rosemary, and I drew a chicken on it. You can see this is very basic chicken, just to see how it would work, how long it would take, whether it was good fun, that kind of thing. So I drew my chicken on here and I outlined him in stem stitch, and I started with these lovely feathers, and this is French knots for the coxcomb and some satin stitch, and it was really just to make it up as I go along. But this isn't really what I wanted to do with it. What I wanted to do was to transform this dress into something like a Madeline illustrated dress. So this is a dress that I got off Vinted. It is Flax is the make. It's an American brand which I really like. Their linens are nice and slubby and drapey, and the shapes tend to be very simple and also quite roomy, and they always have pockets. So I had bought this dress for £18 off Vinted, and I'd started here making it sort of blue flowers around the neckline, because when this dress arrived, although I love the shape and it fits me, looks nice, the colour was a little bit too sackcloth for me. So I thought I would brighten it up by putting some embroidery around the neckline. And then Christmas came, we had people staying, we tidied it up into a cupboard, and I completely forgot about it. So it was only when I was thinking about this idea of completion and doing things, and I also found myself online looking for a late summer dress, that I thought, no, what I'll do is I will find this again and I will transform it, and I will put the hens onto the skirt. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this basic idea and size of hen, and I am drawing, let me scrumple that up a bit, I'm just drawing the hens onto the skirt using a white marker pen that if I put water on it, it will disappear. So I'm just drawing the outlines and then kind of freehand embroidering the hen. So I've got my first one there with a really nice tail, and you can see it's just exactly like the sample, this one. It's got stem stitch for the outline, satin stitch for the beak. This is French knots, and then I can go a little bit wild on the tail feathers. And then I have started another one, which is a white outline. You can see the pen mark here where I didn't draw the line in the right place, and that will just disappear. So don't worry about that if you're trying to do this. Again, having good fun with feathers and beaks and so on. So I think that I will be able to fit 10 or 12 hens around the skirt, and then I will continue all of these blue flowers right the way over the bodice. And it's not slow to do this kind of embroidery. It's, you know, it does go quite fast. So I would get a hen done in an evening, and I think that because each of the hens is going to be a little bit different, that's going to be the thing that actually keeps my attention. So there we are. This is my ongoing project for the summer, and I'm hoping to get it finished for September, which is when I'm going on holiday. I'm going to go and have my breakfast now, because in recording this I managed to record the whole thing without any audio. So I got up early this morning and I'm re-recording it. I'm just blighted, I think. Now we've got the phone ringing. So I think I will go and answer the phone, and I will see you next week. Bye bye.